Is this on? Is anyone listening? I hope so. A lot of people start any process by talking, and my goal here is to start with listening. At Modern Animal, listening to our members is at the core of our standard. It's how we deliver amazing care, by listening to the people who come in and trust the care of their beloved pets to us. I want to give the profession of veterinary medicine the same treatment, the same level of care. Veterinary professionals deserve a voice, they deserve a platform, and they deserve a spotlight for the work that they do. There are spotlights out there, there are platforms out there. Some of them focus on maybe a little bit more of a negative side. I want to focus on the positive stories. I want to focus on all of the interesting people who are part of this profession. And I want to hear your stories. I want to hear your ideas. Mainly, I want to listen. In Modern Animal, one of our core values is to stay curious, and literally staying curious means you have to listen. You have to ask questions, and then you have to listen to the answers. So that's what I'm here for. Welcome to Listening with Dr. Christy Long. I think, the irony of what I'm about to say is, given what I just said, that I'm here to listen, I want to spend a minute talking, and I want to tell you a little bit about my story, and I hope by doing so, the purpose is not to impress or gain any kind of credibility in anyone's eyes who is listening to this or watching it, but it's more to tell you, lay a base for the authenticity of what I'm about to embark on with this podcast. So, ironically, I'm going to start by telling my story. I feel like if I'm going to ask other people to be honest and to be open and to be their authentic selves, then I need to do the same. So I want to tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about my journey into this chair right here. I did not have the same path to veterinary medicine that probably 90% of the veterinarians you'll talk to out there did. I did not want to be a veterinarian as a child. I remember going to the veterinarian with my mom to take our dog, and I remember thinking, this is the most disgusting place I've ever been. It's dirty, it smells bad. I think maybe this guy's been drinking. And I could not have imagined a life where you did that day in, day out. It was a different time. There was a different standard of care also. And it never occurred to me to become a veterinarian. And I remember in high school, a teacher telling me, it's too bad you're not better at math because you would make a great doctor. And any of those of you who are listening and are doctors are probably laughing because, the math is not that hard. If you got a calculator, you're going to crush it, right? So, lesson in telling children what they can and can't do. They'll prove you right every time. I never thought about pursuing medicine or even science, really, and I went to college and I ended up getting a business degree, and because kind of everybody else around me did. It was late 80s, and that was where I landed. I took the first job that was offered to me. It happened to be in what at that time was a fairly young industry, which was software design and development. And I started being a software engineer. I wrote code. I was a database administrator for a while. I led projects. I ended up selling software. And I didn't hate it. It was definitely one of those jobs that, probably a lot of people, do, where they go in the morning, they come home in the afternoon, and they grumble about it a little bit, but then they kind of put it aside and they don't think about it again. I liked solving problems. I like solving human problems with software, but I would not call it a calling in any way. And so I did that for about 10 or 11 years, and right around the turn of the century, my gosh, how old does that sound? My husband was sort of struggling with his job, and we both decided to take a year off and backpack, literally around the world. We started in Atlanta, where we lived at the time. We went through Mexico, through South America, jumped over, did a little bit of Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, and then flew back to San Francisco and then home from there. So pretty early in the trip, we were in Peru, actually, and we had taken a boat up the Amazon into the rainforest, and it was incredible. I remember the dolphins in the Amazon River are pink, by the way, in case you've never been able to see that. So it's truly a spectacular trip. But the reason for going was to go to this eco lodge and have a ceremony with a shaman who was a native healer. And the way she had been trained to heal people, either for physical or for mental ailments, and also to kind of divine the future, kind of to see into the future, was to drink a substance called ayahuasca. The cool thing about ayahuasca, and the amazing thing about it, is that hundreds of years ago, and the natives have been using this for a while, right? The shaman drink it, and they divine the future. They see ways to heal people from both, physical and mental ailments. But it's not one plant; it's actually two plants. And look, I may get this wrong, but I think I'm on the right track here. I'm not a botanist, but stay with me. One of the plants has the actual active substance that causes the hallucinations. But if you just ingested that plant, your stomach would break it down and it would not be active. So they combined it with another plant that inhibits the breakdown in the stomach, which allows the plant to have effect. And so that in and of itself is kind of crazy, that someone figured that out without benefit of actual, scientific methods. So really fascinating. It tastes awful. They give you a trash can of your very own, which is designed to allow you to throw up. For some reason, I could not throw up. I was the only one in the group who did not throw up. I've never wanted to throw up so badly, but I did not. The point of my story is not about any experience I had on the ayahuasca. I had some visions. I don't really think they meant a whole lot, but what is the point of my story is that the next day, we were sort of having a kind of a debriefing session, and the shaman was there, and she came up to me, and she put her hands on my shoulders, and she was a lot shorter than me, so she kind of reached up, and she said, in her native language, which wasn't even Spanish, I don't know exactly what it was, but she said, and our guide translated, she said to me, "You are a healer." And I just thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. And, probably made a joke about, no, I'm a software engineer or something that she didn't understand, but she kind of just shrugged her shoulders and was like, the guide was like, "Well, she says you're a healer," And so, I didn't think that much about it at the time, but months later, we were in the Himalayas and we were trekking, and we were on the Annapurna circuit, for anybody who kind of knows, that part of the world. And you trek for days and you come into view of one of the tallest mountains in the world. It's incredible. But I started thinking about, why did I do this with my life? Why had I spent the last 10, 11 years in software? I hadn't ever had this passion about it. It just was something that I took by default. And I started thinking, what was I supposed to do? What would I have done if I had really, asked myself what I was passionate about? My parents were they were pushing me pretty hard to go into a profession where I would be comfortable and make plenty of money. And that was really all, that was the only measuring stick I really had. So I was thinking about this a lot and pondering it, and we were hiking, and we were pretty far apart from each other, hiking through these big scree fields with like these massive granite walls on either side, and pondering, and I'm thinking like, gosh, I remember being told in grade school that, or actually I think it was high school, I was told that it's too bad I wasn't better at math because I would have been a good doctor. And I mean, that's kind of hilarious, right? Because like there's no math in medicine really that you can't do with a calculator for the most part. I mean, I'm sure if you're like a radiation oncologist and there's calculus involved in that, but there's probably a computer that does it for you. So, I dismissed that out of hand because someone said that to me. And I started thinking, during this trek, like, I really do love science, and I am really fascinated by the body and by, how it can heal itself, and how medicine and surgery can be used to do that. But I really love animals, and I love working with people. That's the thing I loved about software. I love solving people's problems using technology. So I started thinking, like, what would it be like, to go back to college. I didn't even know how you became a veterinarian, really. I figured there was vet school, but I didn't know how you got in. I didn't know any of that, but I remember looking up to my left at this granite face, and I tell you this story, and I want you to know, like, I'm not into weird stuff, okay? Like, when someone brings up horoscopes, or somebody says something like, oh, well, obviously this is happening because, like, Mercury's in retrograde or whatever, I usually leave the room. I'm just not, I'm a pretty practical person. No offense to any of my Zodiac fans out there. But I looked up at this granite face, and I saw in bright pink and bright blue letters, it reminded me of Barbie letters, kind of a Barbie font, and it said, "Why the hell not?" And I saw this. I know it was there. I don't know how else to say it. And I looked back, and it was gone. And I sat with that for a bit, and then I told my husband about it the next day, and he said, well, you have to go to vet school. That's all there is to it. He's always been my number one fan. We finished our trip. We came back to the U.S. and ended up moving to Fort Collins, Colorado. And I had about a year and a half of classwork to take in order to even really apply to vet school. I had a lot of sciences I hadn't taken, and I was 8 months pregnant at the time that I applied to vet school, and I somehow got in. And I can truly say at this point in my life, I knew what it felt like to just go after something and want it so badly and to actually achieve it. So I started vet school that year in 2003 with a 5-month-old, which was, an incredible journey. I mean, he went to vet school with me. I graduated in 2007. I practiced small animal medicine for 7 years at a practice there in Fort Collins. Living in Fort Collins meant that it was a little bit hard to get a job because a lot of people want to stay in Fort Collins after vet school. And I loved it. I've never felt so much like I knew what my purpose was on this earth, except for when I was practicing veterinary medicine. I think for me, the first few years of practicing as a vet were very difficult, and I feel like I kind of expected that. I did not have great mentorship. I did not have good management. I remember kind of just being thrown in, and asking questions was risking exposing my ignorance, and that was not tolerated. So, I kept thinking as I was working, how could all this be different? How could people feel supported as they do this job? How could they feel like it's okay to not know? It's okay to say, I'll figure that out, but I don't know the answer right now. And then combining that with just, the amount of time I was spending at work, the amount of time I was on the phone with people talking about their pets and answering questions that probably really didn't have to be answered by a vet. But that was really the only way we had to help people. We didn't have another way set up for that. So I think I feel like that was the way the profession was, and there really wasn't a change to it. It felt like the technology and all the software we worked with was behind by like 15 to 20 years. Things didn't work together very well. The systems weren't integrated. So I ended up getting a chance to help start one of the very first veterinary telehealth companies. And the premise was really interesting. The idea was that, basically there were vets and they were available to answer questions for people. And if the pet needed to actually be cared for, which, by the way, most of the time they needed to actually go in and see a veterinarian, that recommendation had to be made. But a lot of times people just had a very simple question, and we were able to help a lot of people. So I think that experience taught me, the physical experience is very important, but there also should be a way to help people when they're not in front of you as a veterinarian. We ended up selling that business to Petco, and that brought me to Southern California, and I got to help start a couple of hospitals for Petco, and I got to learn a lot about what it means to operate a veterinary hospital. And I got introduced to a couple of young entrepreneurs who were starting a new kind of veterinary company that used technology, a better experience for the client, a more seamless experience through communication, through an app, a more comfortable physical experience where, it didn't feel like that vet clinic that I was in with my mom when I was, 10 years old. Things didn't smell bad and phones weren't ringing, but also really leaning heavily into the idea that we needed to create a better environment for the people who spend 10, 11 hours a day in the clinic, from a standpoint of a more comfortable environment, but also a supported career and a profession where you have career goals and growth ahead of you. So I was really excited to meet them, and I signed on to help pretty much right from the beginning. So I got to start working at Modern Animal in May of 2019, and I've never looked back from the first hospital that we opened the first week of the pandemic all the way to today, where we have 29 hospitals across 3 states. So that's my story, and it's a little raw. I get it if you're thinking I'm a little crazy for seeing neon letters on the side of a mountain, but that's my authentic experience. My hope is that these stories will resonate with you and bring you joy and help you see what an incredible profession veterinary medicine is. I'm excited about some upcoming episodes we have. We have a dean of a vet school who's going to tell you what it was like to start a vet school from scratch. I have some amazing veterinarians from Modern Animal, including some who work virtually, and the story of their path. For my next episode, I'm really excited to welcome one of our most popular, most hilarious, good time doctors at Modern Animal, Stephen Bruckenthal. You may have seen him on our Mic'd Up series before, but until I met Stephen, I thought I was the only software engineer who turned into a veterinarian, but Stephen proved me wrong. So I'm looking forward to you guys hearing his story. In closing, that's it for today. I do want to talk about, though, what brings me joy in this profession, because I want to be sure that I hear that from all of my guests. And what brings me joy is being in one of our hospitals and seeing our teams doing their jobs in a way that makes them happy and brings them joy and causes them to laugh and just enjoy their day. All right, that's it. This has been Listening with Dr. Christy Long.